James Milner, and we have Bridie on the camera changing today.
The game we have up today is the Australian under-18 men's A team against the New Zealand under-18 men's blue team. Just like with the women, the New Zealand team have been generous enough to split their teams into two equal teams, whereas the Australians opting to have a team and a B team here, and they're off on the first strike of the game.
Australia starting very strongly.
Australia pushing all the way to that side wall. But New Zealand coming around, and it looks like they've pinned them at about the halfway mark there.
Always an interesting start to the game when we go straight to the side wall, right in the middle. Doesn't show any dominance from one team to the other. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome. So far, the New Zealand blue team has managed to beat the Australian A team so far, but anything can happen in the semi-final.
Big break through the middle here. Looks like Australia just managed to curl them off and put it back on that wall.
Massive drive from the Australian team towards their sub bench on the wall. This will be good for Australia to get some fresh subs in.
We can see number 5, Callum Booth there from New Zealand, just holding his ground against the Australian drive, making sure they don't make it any further. And
good
here comes the New Zealanders.
Terrible body position there from the New Zealander, Awa Randall.
Just letting Australia drive down that wall, but it looks like New Zealand will gain possession back. And just as Tom Robertson takes possession of the puck there, we've got a call. It's going to be chopping against New Zealand, so Australia getting the first free puck of the game.
For the New Zealanders, that's also known as a stick infringement.
Captain Declan Hilda here taking the free puck, swinging it out on the 45 and releasing it off half. Looks like New Zealand's managed to get there first. Good burst of speed by that New Zealand winger, and he's going to be able to take it all the way to the half, really shutting down that Australian free puck there.
New Zealand really trying to use the space effectively, but Australia have got a lot of numbers on the bottom, really shutting down anything the New Zealanders are trying to do. You can see, and that's Rob Tinkler in the bit of the camera there, using his GoPro to use a bit of footage after the game to analyse how they're going.
Yeah, coaches often like to have their own footage taken, make sure they're really looking at what they want to look at instead of what we want to look at here in the commentator's booth. And it looks like the play's really stalled. A lot of wall play here, really showing both teams not 100% confident bringing it out into the open, at least until they manage to get the numbers to do so. And Australia inching up that wall, but it looks like New Zealand now taking it to the middle.
Making a massive break. Oh, huge hit from the Australian.
It looks like an Australian player just coming off the sub bench and managing to catch the New Zealand player. He wasn't expecting a player to come from that direction. But the puck spills, and it looks like New Zealand still have the best of the possession. And they've driven it back onto that far side wall.
So New Zealand's playing a bit of a patient game. Quite a few numbers on top of the water. Otherwise, the fitness is already starting to affect them at the start of the game, which is not a good sign.
It can often be hard to tell where you need to be underwater when the puck's going back and forth like this. You do not want to go down and get caught way out of position because the game's turned around. Almost safer just to stay on the surface until you know exactly what's happening. And the puck coming all the way across, heavy pressure from number 12 from New Zealand.
It's Henry Griffiths, a Wellington College boy from Wellington. Massive hit by what it looks like to be Awa Randall, number 10.
Oh, and the New Zealanders just forcing this through. Looks like Jordan Duffel managing to control that puck, taking it off onto the wall, but New Zealand have a lot of numbers down. Don't know if they're in the correct position there, and you can see the two New Zealanders there lurking out the back, hoping the Australian spills the puck behind him or curls around. Doesn't look like he's going to do that, though, and it's going to be another stick infringement against New Zealand.
Australia looking very pumped at the moment in the sub bench, and New Zealand, I wouldn't say have as much enthusiasm as the Australians if you were to look at body positioning and how they're standing.
Well, it's hard to be enthusiastic when the puck's just been caught against you, but it looks like the New Zealanders are going to do a good job of screening this puck wide, and a big break coming through here in the middle for the New Zealanders. Looks like they've got 2 or 3 people on the bottom. The referee calling advantage. You can only assume that's for New Zealand.
Looks like they've got it into the goal bin, and it's another goal being called by one of the refs, an instruction, but there's a referee's timeout. It looks like they've got different opinions on what the call should be.
And it really looked like referee Angus there was calling advantage for New Zealand. but referee Pete Vanderwood thought he saw a foul on the side of the New Zealand team. So it's really going to depend who fouled first. I imagine it could be called a no goal either way.
But it'll be an advantage puck towards the New Zealanders. I'm assuming if there was an advantage being played from previous. So he's
Captain Declan Hilda caught in between the refs there, and it's going to be a no goal, but the New Zealand players get the free there. Good work from the referees calling advantage, but unfortunately the New Zealanders just fouling to finish off that goal into the goal tray. Australia now pushed back just past halfway, setting up a strong line of defence. New Zealanders also got a couple of players in there trying to bust up that line. And it looks like New Zealand just maintaining possession, searching for their support. It looks like they might have found it, but Australia just tapping that puck away from New Zealanders. Really better to get around the edge there. It looks like the New Zealanders got his bat over the top. Really better to get that fairly. We're not sure. It looks like he's managed to do so.
New Zealanders got a lot of numbers on the bottom. It just depends on whether they can keep them down on the bottom at the right time. Great curl out from the New Zealander over to the opposite wall.
And yeah, the Australian winger just not in position there to prevent that swim right out of Australia's danger zone, that area they were trying to push into the goal tray and all the way over onto that side wall. Great work from the New Zealand wing, realising he had space out to the side there and just immediately getting that puck out of danger.
Very static on the wall at the moment. Both teams getting a lot of numbers on the bottom. Drive from Australia.
No, it's New Zealand, but Australia has the back there. Oh, punches through to the Australian centre. And the puck right in the goal, and it looks like it might go in here.
I think it might have gone in and popped out, but the referee is calling no goal.
It looks like it's going to go against Australia here.
He put it into the bin on the bottom of his glove instead of using his stick.
You can see Jordan Duffel there nodding. I think he realises what he did wrong. Very unlucky there for Australia. Great drive. New Zealand getting their fair share of possession, but just struggling to get it out from this tight contained Australia's put around the goals.
This is definitely a very intense semi-final to start off the New Zealand under-19 grade, or under-18 grade, should we say.
Australia trying to steal that one out. Looks like New Zealand managing to keep possession though. Passes it back to a back. I'm not sure who has possession here as the puck is driven all the way across the pool. See the referees intently staring, making sure nothing is going awry.
It's been driven towards the Australian sub-bench, which could be quite useful for the Australians to get some fresh players in after that big long drive up in the goal.
Very brave flick there from the Australian back, going right across the New Zealand stick. Luckily, he wasn't allowed to chop it down there, as that could have been very dangerous this close to the goal. And the referee has his hand in the air. We'll see what this is all about. So it's going to go against New Zealand, a stick infringement against one of the New Zealand players.
A lot more calls are being made in this game today than we've had previously in the women's grade, so it looks like the tensions are high and there's a timeout being called for the Australian men's under-19 team.
Yeah, and good work by both teams here. We've seen a couple of very close calls, but the referees not happy with the way the players are finishing off these goals. And so far, one no-goal called for each team. That New Zealand team had a really good breakout, which was called a no-goal, and the Australian team driving it in over a really sustained period. But once again, gloved that one into the tray. We've got referees Pete, Angus, and Bruce in the water today, really making sure this game's played up to standard.
It's been a very fantastic effort from all the referees this tournament, as we've only got New Zealand and Australian referees, but there hasn't been any bias, in my opinion, from any of the refs so far. As we get closer to finals, tensions do get higher. It's not Bruce in the water. It is Andrew Harris is the other ref in the water, and we've
Sorry about that, everyone.
got Rob Feast up on the chief referee deck.
Just 7.5 minutes left in this first half, and really it could be anyone's game so far. We've got what looks like Australia driving up this wall, and the puck pops off the wall for a second, but it looks like it's going to be put straight back on. You can see the tattooed back of Coach
Great drive
Jumpy.
from the New Zealand players into the middle of the pool. Driving up the wall now, putting a lot of pressure and a lot of numbers onto the Australians. The Australians are really scrambling to try and stop this goal coming through.
And New Zealand making an enormous amount of ground there, but it looks like the Australians have managed to keep them out for now. Very important for Australia to keep it out of that zone in the middle of the pool where the New Zealanders can just keep reloading to their backs. And it looks like they've managed to push it a couple of metres off that goal trade, but New Zealand looking for that 45 drive into the centre.
Great numbers from the Australian team.
It looks like Australia passing a big flick across to the wing. He's got support on the other side, but it doesn't look like he's going to look for it. He's just going to pin that that puck into the corner.
New Zealand going for a big flick across the play instead of going up the back wall.
Great work from that Australian player. I think it was number 4, Tommy Marsh. I'm not 100% sure on that one, though. Really good defence. If that flick had gone in, it easily could have been a goal for New Zealand. And now the Australians coming back with a vengeance. I imagine they got several good subs in as the puck went under their sub bench.
Great nimble work from one of the New Zealanders. Didn't quite catch the number on that one.
And here we see Jack Hopkins trying to get the puck off one of the New Zealanders. Ooh, and the attempted swerve. Looks like the Australian, just not confident with his body position, has to go up, even though he stopped that original swerve. And New Zealand now, there you can see the
showing a lot of support, trying to get into the middle of the pool. The question is can they get the second phase coming through to score that last goal, or can the Australians hold it out? Great work from the Australians on the defensive line.
It looks like it's gone in.
That looks like a goal to me. The refs are looking happy with it so far.
And fist pumps all around by the New Zealand team. Really good work by them, managing to keep reloading.
Scored by number 4, Moss Grenfell, a Wellington boy from Hutt-Billy High School.
Great work, Moss, there. Great work to all the New Zealand team. Really, the Australians not having the body position to defend that puck, coming straight into the middle of their tray. And the score, 1 to New Zealand blue in white and 0 to the Australian team. This is the Australian A team in black.
Very, very close game here in half-time.
New Zealand very quick to that puck, and they find the flick out to the wing. The puck spills behind, and the New Zealand back just ready to pick that one up.
New Zealand coming in for another quick one by the looks of things. Can Australia hold off the drive? Stick infringement from the New Zealand team, so the Australians will be taking the advantage puck.
So puck pushed back. New Zealand very aggressive there.
And when one of all these bizarre signals at the restaurant,
and we're trying just to cut out some of the noise. We know our current microphone setup does let a lot of noise in from outside, and we wouldn't want to detract from the great commentary going on here with Devon Glover and James Milner. The flick comes in from Australia, but it looks like New Zealand have just enough numbers. An Australian player tapping his friend on the shoulder there. Not sure what that was about. Maybe letting them know to switch position for a second.
And we've got New Zealanders driving, but the Australians doing some great work on the defensive line. But the New Zealanders seem to have one wider player, and
great work for the goal. New Zealand finding an enormous amount of room around the side there, swimming all the way down, and then as the last Australian back came down, a New Zealander over the top. It looked like Tommy Marsh coming over the top there. He scored that final goal as the flick came over the last last Australian back. Not able to chop that one down.
The New Zealander number 4, Moss Grenfell, once again from Hutt-Billy High.
Oh, sorry, that's the Australian number 4, Slane Marsh. Great work from the New Zealanders. Moss Grenfell there, coming over the top and scoring that goal.
Moss is the vice captain for the New Zealand blue team. His second to last year of high school, if I am correct.
And New Zealand really amping up the pressure here. That second goal coming in very quickly after the first, and it looks like New Zealand putting in a lot of pressure here on the goal tray again. It looks like they've really hit their stride.
It seems like they found an extra little bit of fire in them, and the Aussies just need to recuperate, centre themselves and bring themselves back into the game, because at the moment the New Zealanders are just all over them.
Indeed. It looks like the Australians have managed to push it out to the corner. And the Australians have done a good job so far of clearing it out of this corner. We haven't seen the New Zealand team able to do much once it gets cleared there. Really, these New Zealand drives coming in strong through the middle of the pool.
An advantage is being played by one of the referees, I'm assuming for the New Zealand team, as they're driving the key, and it's been pulled away now. So The advantage has been lost. Great work from the Australian team, holding it down in that far corner. Not much that we can see.
Really just pinned in there. Australia inching up the wall now.
As I've said in the past, this is one of the hardest places for both teams to be in, as they're far away from their sub-bench, so it really comes down to the fitness and whether a call will be made by the refs or not.
Definitely a lot of work being done. As the Australians drive out, it looks like the New Zealanders have found a bit of a 45. Australia able to contain that as we see the referee signaling advantage, and his hand goes in the air. It looks like he's going to go against Australia there. That's another stick infringement for Australia, and a lot of subs coming out. Australia now going to be pushed right back against their back line.
New Zealanders having a quick chat. Looks like they might be calling a timeout for the New Zealand team. A 1 minute timeout. Each team gets 1 minute per half to call, so they can recuperate, either to give their players who don't get to sub as much a rest, or for the coach to give them a bit of advice. Rob Tinkler, the goalie for the New Zealand men's team, is the coach of the under-18 blue team.
Yeah, the coach maybe wanted to clarify what it looks like a couple of those New Zealand players were chatting about. Maybe wants to make sure they've got the right idea coming in to the end of this first half. Just a minute and a half left, and New Zealand blue team really have looked like they've got the better of it so far. Australia's had a couple of good drives in, but unable to capitalise, whereas the blue team from New Zealand making the most of that big 45 drive, finding the space around the outside. We'll see if they can keep doing this now, as the Australian team pushed right back against their back wall. 3 New Zealand players right in the goal tray, 3 sitting back to cover.
All numbers on the bottom of the pool. That's always good to see on an advantage puck.
And look, the Australians have really hit that hard, but the referee's got his hand in the air though. It's going to go against Australia, possibly not breaking. It was a gloving foul. I think the Australian player got the hit, but as he ripped the puck around, he was using his glove there for that one.
One of the Australians looking quite close on the advantage line, playing with fire if the referees decide to call up a breaking call.
And to look at any Australians charging out of that puck normally.
Looks like that's a
goal.
It's
no goal. Referee Pete Van was calling gloving against the New Zealand team. So a bit of a break here for the Australian team. Very odd the way they took that puck. Normally in Australia we like to send one player right out to hit the puck, really force the attacking back to do something with it. But it looks like maybe a bit of confusion in the back line. It looks like it's going to be number 1, Mason Gillespie for Australia, taking this puck. And it looks like they're going to clear it to the wall with just a couple of seconds left in this first half. Of course, we don't stop time in the first half of play, so all of these referees' calls have been eaten into time here. Great clearance there from Australia. Really did not want to go down anymore in this first half.
So there was a little bit of confusion in the sub bench from the Australians just then, but they've sorted themselves out. Call has been made, a free arm from the Australians, and they use the arm that is not on the use of the puck, and they use their arm to fend someone off. Not quite a rugby tactic used in underwater hockey.
Yeah, but that's going to be half time here. The New Zealanders not able to take that free. Great work from Australia, keeping it out for this last minute and a half, but New Zealand really putting on the pressure in this first half.
Interesting tactic from the New Zealand coach, putting the players onto the side of the pool instead of the usual in the middle, maybe just to give them a little bit more rest and have them get their lungs expanding a bit more.
Yeah.
In the New Zealand team today we have number 2, Forrest Axford, 3, Sam Hopgood, 4, Moss Greenfield, 5, Callum Booth, 6, Finn Hollingworth, 7, Logan Stevenson, number 10, Awa Randall, 11, Liam Quinlan, 12, Henry Griffiths, and 13, James Ramsbottom. And the coach is Rob Tinkler.
On the opposite side for Australia, we've got number 1, Mason Gillespie, number 2, Aidan Dutoy, number 3, Jack Hopkins, number 4, Tommy Marsh, number 5, Sam Lowry, number 6, Connor Martin, number 7, the captain, Declan Hilda, number 8, Marco Rolfs, number 9, Jordan Duffel, number 10, Roy Trumbull, number 11, Tom Robinson, and number 13, Isaac Bridley. We're not sure who's sitting out today, but that's the full team list. The coaches, Steve Cleary and Jumpy, just in the water now, talking to their players. We did have Captain Declan Hilda over on the side having a bit of a word to the refs. Not sure what that was about, but maybe he was just clarifying a couple of their calls.
And with 1 minute to go in the half-time, the score is 2 white to the New Zealand blue team and 0 to the Australian under-19 A-team.
And of course, this game is the 2 versus 3 seed playoff. The winner of this will go on to play tomorrow in the grand final for the under-18 men's division. After this, we do have the current top of the standings, the under-18 men's New Zealand silver team. Of course, all these New Zealand teams have great names. Against the Australian development team, coached by Jack Robertisso. And it looks like we've got all of our cameras working as we're about to start the second half. All the players look ready to go.
It's very interesting watching the strike on the different setups that all countries use. I know that a lot of people get quite confused from different countries.
I don't know what New Zealand does. In Australia, we just put the 3 men in the middle. So 1 centre forward and 2 wingers on each side, and then the 2 backs behind them, filling in the gaps between the player, and of course the right back will sit out in a defensive position.
It really changes up with New Zealand. It looks like the New Zealanders are going for the 2 up front and keeping everyone in behind in case it spills in.
It's very defensive. Of course, a lot of these New Zealanders have a good turn of speed, so if the puck spills out wide, I'm sure they're quite confident they'll get to it first. And New Zealand driving hard. Looks like Australia's managed to clear it, but New Zealand definitely in attack in the first couple of minutes of this second half here. So Australia just able to keep it out of their defensive corner for now, but New Zealand, a lot of numbers down, as you can see, both teams rotating, try to get players behind the puck to push forward as New Zealand control it into the corner there.
Yeah, the New Zealand team is definitely taking a lot of possession later on in this game. In the first, it was very, very close. I think the Australians have started to find a bit of their flair now, though.
Looks like
going for a massive drive.
2 New Zealanders coming in to cover him. Doesn't look like he's going to keep breaking down that wall, but he may have found support behind. It looked like another Australian player breaking in, and it looks like, oh, the puck bounced off the lip of the goal tray, but fortunately the New Zealand player had thought it was going in already and pulled back. Number 3 for Australia there, Jack Hopkins. A massive break from him and a massive break from that winger. I'm not sure who that was.
So it definitely shows that the game is never over.
Marco Rolfs was that winger breaking and making the original break, and it looks like he just found Jack Hopkins behind him there to continue that break. The score now 2 for New Zealand, 1 Australia.
Definitely not the game over, and as I've said before, as James has agreed with me, Australia do like to make their comebacks in the second half and really put on the pressure.
Some Australian teams have jokingly referred to themselves as the Heartbreak Kids because we love to be the underdog and coming back late in the game, late in the tournament to secure that medal. New Zealand now pushing again. They're not going to be happy that Australia found that chink in their armour. And I'm sure they'll be working hard to protect that as the game continues. It looks like a 45 drive here from New Zealand, taking it off the wall. Australia able to defend that. Looks like Australia just swimming slowly up the side here, really looking for support.
Seems to be very stagnant in the middle. Both teams looking for that opportunity to drive out and take control. Australia is going for a bit of a swim.
In the middle, oh, and he's broken through that first defender. New Zealand multiple members down there. Looks like he's coated around. The referee's calling an advantage.
He's taking the advantage down.
Big flick there coming in for Australia, and lots of numbers. That looks like it's going to go in, but New Zealand managing to clear through the middle.
Solid defensive work from the New Zealanders. Advantage being played by one of the referees, and the call has been made.
Got to go against New Zealand, as New Zealand's just breaking out.
Penalty shot. This is a moment when the foul was so close to the goal bin that it was almost certainly going to go in, and the Australians will put 2 players against 1 defender, and majority of the time the defender does not save the penalty shot, but it has been done in the past. Moss Grenfell, number 4, is the defender for New Zealand.
And we've got number 13, Isaac Bridley, and number 1, vice-captain Mason Gillespie taking this free for Australia. I know Mason has a big flick on him, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him taking the flick. Isaac from Tasmania. Oh, and there we have the massive flick coming in from Mason Gillespie. And that's going to be another goal from Australia. Number 1, Mason Gillespie scoring that goal.
Moss Grenfell taking the approach of charging out and trying to pressure the Australians, but the flick was just too strong from the Australian.
It's definitely a difficult decision what you're going to do. I've seen a lot of success had in the charge. Sometimes you can spook the player with the puck so much that you manage to hit it before they even get the flick off. But the score now tied very early into the second half, and it looks like we've got a game on our hands, Devin.
It definitely does. New Zealanders were looking strong and confident in the first half, but the Australians have come back to a strong 2-2 draw currently. It's always exciting when a game is this close in a semi-final, especially if we get to go into overtime.
New Zealand looking for the man in the middle. Fortunately, the Australian back able to cover him, and New Zealand now taking it out of that corner. The flick doesn't go quite as far as he wants, and we can see Connor Martin there for Australia pinning against the wall.
Great work from the Australian, reading the New Zealander, trying to go into the middle, man-marking him almost, just to make sure he doesn't get anywhere that he wants to go.
I can see a referee calling advantage. Not for sure who this is going to be for. You can only imagine it's going to be for Australia as they're now pushing up this wall. And a long advantage call from the ref.
It seems like the advantage has been lost. He's playing advantage again.
And Australia breaking down this wall.
Australia really seem to have found their groove now, driving the New Zealanders back and putting them on the back foot.
Big curl coming in from Captain Declan Hilda, and it looks like he's got multiple men on him, but he managed to get the flick away. I'm not sure if that found an Australian player, and New Zealand now coming back up this wall. Great aggression by number 6, number 7 behind him there from New Zealand.
Number 6 and 7, Finn Hollingworth, number 6 and 7, Logan Stevenson.
Isaac Bridley there taking possession just for a second and flicking it down to the middle. Maybe looking to get it away from this wall.
Great work from the centre player. I think that was number 8. Don't have a number 8 in that team, so it definitely wasn't 8.
It's very hard to tell, of course, the players' mask straps and snorkels obscuring the numbers on their caps. And it's really great when the players can write their numbers nice and big on their forearms, so we can see here in the commentator's booth. Referee squarely in front of the puck, strong stance there on top of the wall.
They really do have some strong positioning in front of the cameras.
It looks like New Zealand here able to break through the Australians' first line of defence. Australia might be able to clear it.
I'm not sure if you can hear previously, there's a strong New Zealand support on the side of the pool. Not many Australians, which you seem to think is slightly ironic being in an Australian country, but the same thing happened a couple of years ago in Wellington where the Australians seem to be dominant on the supporting side.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of New Zealanders here hanging around the pool waiting for their games, whereas all the Australians can go home
and rest.
So a bit of a double-edged sword here for New Zealand. They're stuck here in the pool,
the hot
pouring fumes in their lungs, but on the other hand, a lot of support.
From the referee kicking the camera.
And we can see those Nijard fins there that the New Zealanders are favouring this competition right in front of the camera, and it looks like masked. They masked the goal from New Zealand, number 12 there.
Henry Griffiths, another boy from Wellington College. He's coached by a very well-known player, Benson Taylor, in the schools grade.
Yeah, great work from New Zealand. They're getting the numbers down. I only wish we had seen exactly what happened. But 8.5 minutes left, and both teams seem to have even more energy than they did in the first half.
The score now 3-2 Blue, 2 to the Australians. I don't know about yourself, I quite enjoyed looking at the Black Sheep logo on the back of that referee's togs. Great team, I've heard.
Yeah, well, that was of course Devon's team, the Black Sheep, or the New Zealand Barbarians. They're doing a great job battling in the under-22 competition. They've already taken down the Australian
and the Colts. We haven't managed to get a win against the New Zealand under-22s.
New Zealand under-22 is just a little bit too quick fit for the older Barbarians team, maybe.
We've got this great tactic of not letting people swim.
Yeah, and the current score for that division is 1-1 with the Barbarians against the Colts. and the Barbarians team taking down the Australian under-22s team in one game and drawing in their second game.
Correct, and the New Zealand under-22s has beaten the Australian under-22s once and lost against the Australian. Very confusing grade. No one knows who's going to win.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell what happens. I don't know about the other teams, but our team definitely has, our team being the Colts team, that is the team I play for. We've got a couple of ring-ins that have work during the day and then can only come and play in the afternoon games, so the team's very variable. But we see here now Australia pushing all the way down towards the New Zealand defensive side. New Zealand holding very strong there. Looks like the puck's coming off the wall now. And New Zealand have found a gap in the middle there.
Break.
It looks like they've got past all the Australian defenders, and that's going to be another goal for New Zealand. Really great work.
Solid gas on the New Zealand player. Not sure what the number was. Number 2, Forrest Axford, the captain of the blue team, player from in the Auckland region, played for the under-19 New Zealand team last year that won gold at the World Championships.
Amazing work there from that New Zealand player. Australia, I'm not sure what happened with the backline, but it looked like they were really spread. It didn't even look like the New Zealand player had any contention one-on-one. They just spotted the gap and managed to just sprint through, finding a lot of open space on the other side of that Australian backline into the goals.
That does seem to happen a lot in the later time of the second half. With only 7 minutes to go, players are going to be getting more and more tired and more mistakes are going to start happening. It's just a question of whether Australia can recoup themselves and bring back some fire, bring it back to 4-4. But New Zealand's going for another drive.
Indeed they are. We'll just get the camera on that now. New Zealand, multiple members down, and Australia doing a good job of curling them off, but it looks like
it's in.
It does look like it's in, but none of the players have gone up yet. Australia might have just been able to keep that off the side of the goal tray and push it down that back wall.
Some fantastic hustle from the Australians, really pushing it out. It's quite often when it gets that close to the bin, it just becomes a bit of a brawl, to be honest.
Yeah, and the New Zealanders definitely looked like they had the better body position there. A bit of luck maybe for the Australians managing to push that out. Of course, New Zealand not going to give up, and here they come again. Australia doing a great job of screening that one out wide. New Zealand trying to reload, but the Australian number 9 there, Jordan Duffel, coming through and stopping that happening. And it looks like New Zealand back in the middle, and the referees are going to want to call something here. It's going to be against New Zealand. It was a stick infringement.
New Zealanders are definitely finding it very hard to adapt to the style of stick or bat that the Australians use with a big hook on the end of it, as New Zealand's quite well known for using small sticks, whereas the Australians come in with these big sticks and nice big hooks to take control of the game.
Yeah, well, it's all about that control, like you said, Devon. You've got to, when you're coming in behind the New Zealand player, they're going to want to curl and reload to their back. You've really got to be able to get in there and steal that puck, and a big hook really helps with that. Of course, the big hook comes with a heavier bat, and so you can see these New Zealand quick hand skills do sometimes pay off for them. And that's going to go against New Zealand here. Australia gets another reprieve, and they're still 2 goals down in this game. The score is 2 to Australia, 4 New Zealand. But as we've seen, Australia able to score goals very quickly. Pin now against the Australian sub-bench there. And it's hard to tell his advantage. New Zealand now looking like they're wanting to do a bit of a push towards the goal tray.
Australia doing some great work here, holding them out of that push, recycling it back to the wall, and really not positioning themselves very well.
Masks come off from the New Zealand player. You can see him sprinting to the sub-bench. Really, no time there. No time to put that on those in play. He's got to get out. But the referee's going to call out against Australia. And it looks like they want to kick out an Australian player.
It looks like it's 1 minute. The one who was demasked was number 6, Finn Hollingworth, a player from Auckland.
And it looks like number 1 or 2 there. We'll see in a second when he gets out. It's number
2, vice captain.
No, it's number 1, vice captain Mason Gillespie has been kicked out. Maybe just using his free arm there to take off that New Zealand mask. Of course, we didn't see it on the camera, but you can only hypothesize what would warrant a kick out there. New Zealand, strength in numbers now, 6 players against 5 as they're taking it back into the middle. Good drive from New Zealanders. Australia desperately trying to get the puck on their stick there, bring it out. of that centre corridor, and it's going to be against Australia again. Obstruction. Looks like the Australian player not quite in control of the puck and reaching for it and getting in the way of those New Zealand players driving.
Seems to be another advantage puck. Refs having a bit of an argument about the call, but it's an advantage for the New Zealanders.
Yeah, they've decided it was for the New Zealanders as they're really looking to take it into the middle here. Looks like Australia's got a bit of an edge on that one though, and they're sprinting towards that far wall.
There was some great pressuring from the Australian team, making the New Zealanders move before they really wanted to. Looks like Coach Sam Cooper is in the water doing some filming for the blue team, or potentially for his own team.
An equal puck, and it looks like two players getting tangled there. It's going to be an obstruction call both ways. So both teams now getting a chance. It's a race to the bottom as both teams line up, and when the buzzer goes, they'll be able to go underwater and get to that puck. Look at Australia first underwater. Couldn't quite see who hit the puck first though.
It's definitely a bit of a brawl in the middle of the pool as both teams have got a little bit more fresh subs in there.
A little bit quicker than the Australians.
Seems to be another strong drive towards the goal bin. Player there waiting for the puck. It looks like it's gone in, but there's a ref timeout.
I think that buzzer went just a second before. I wouldn't be surprised to see a free call against Australia here. That's where the refs need to talk whether they're going to award that goal. Although the buzzer did go slightly before the puck went in the goal tray, I think. Of course, that might just be a slight delay here on the cameras. But no, the puck looks like it's going to go against.
But there's two sent
New
outs.
Zealand, yeah.
Number 2, Forrest Axford, has been.
Yeah, and number 5, Sam Laurie, of course. Mason Gillespie back in the water for a little while now. And now both teams down to 5. Looks like a bit of a battle. And I think New Zealand got that free puck there, and Australia able to clear it wide. Ooh, big hit coming across that New Zealand player reaching across the arm of the Australian player. Doesn't look like the refs are unhappy with it though. Obviously avoiding the face and vital organs of the Australian player with that big swing. You can see Tom Robinson there waiting to get the puck, and he just dishes that one back in the corner. He's not interested in facing all the New Zealand players that I'm sure are lined up just outside of our camera side, as Australia is going to want to push this one out towards their sub bench.
New Zealand trying to come out into the centre of the pool where they seem to be stronger. Driving for that, but the great work from the Australians driving towards their defensive corner once again.
Yeah, New Zealanders, great work getting that outside pressure, but Australia holding the centre strong and stopping that drive down the back wall into the goal tray. And the referee having to back up right against the camera. Hopefully he doesn't push it out of the way. It looks like the land rope's going to stop him. But absolutely nothing to be seen here.
Great shade of yellow though, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And just looking out of the surface, it looks like Australia's been able to mount a bit of a push out away from that corner and on just past the sub bench here.
Getting some fresh subs in, which is always helpful for a game. And we're just sitting right in between our two camera angles, but Australia's making a drive up the side of the pool.
That's great work from Connor Martin there from Australia, driving it up the side. Looks like New Zealand's taking possession now and they're looking to do a switch.
And the New Zealanders didn't quite have the body position to stop that drive down the wall, where Australia were just nice and flat, driving forward.
A lot of Australian caps down now.
I think a couple of the New Zealanders seem to be almost celebrating in the sub-bench already. A couple of hugs go around, unless they're just happy with the play that they just had.
Yeah, possibly a New Zealand player subbing out and just getting a bit of a hug from his teammate. Now, it looks like the New Zealand player about to get in. Oh, and there's only 17 seconds left on the clock, so it looks like these New Zealand players with 2 goals, a 2-goal lead, 2 goals to 4 here, think that they've got this game in the bag. They probably do with 17 seconds left on the clock. Australia might be able to score a bit of a consolation prize here as there's 2 New Zealand players out. It looks like number 5, Sam Laurie, did have a shorter time penalty than the number 2 New Zealand player, Forrest Axford, who was kicked out at the same time. Maybe a slightly less grievous foul there from him. And it's going to be a timeout with 17 seconds to go. I'm not sure which team.
The Australian, New Zealand.
It was the New Zealand team calling that timeout.
Obviously, wanting to not let the Australians get another goal to make their win a little bit sweeter, as it's always nice to finish the game on a high.
And the New Zealand team here are going to want to be looking forward to the final. Just going to be played tomorrow midday.
Bit of pushing on the surface there from the Australian, one of the New Zealanders.
And just 4 players in the water now. We'll see if New Zealand can hold. Oh, and doesn't.
There's a lot of pushing going around on the surface and under the water.
A lot of pushing indeed, especially for our...
I think one of the refs has already seen the pushing and is calling an advantage. I think potentially Moss Greenfield got a little bit angry with one of the Australians.
Australia might just be able to put it in here. Looks like they...
No goal
no
from
goal
one
call.
of the refs. It's a ref's timeout, and he's pulling Moss Greenfield in, and one of the Australian... Oh no, it's number 12 that he's talking to, Henry Griffiths. He's sending number 12 out for unsportsmanlike conduct, and also number 11.
That's Tom Robinson from Australia also being sent out. Count in the water now. 4 to 5. There's 5 Australians and 4 New Zealanders as Forrest Axford got back in the water just on that play.
Very lucky for the New Zealanders not to have 3 in the water, and it looks like Callum Booth is being sat on the side of the pool, ready to get back in very shortly.
It's going to be against Australia here with just 8 seconds left. I can't imagine the New Zealanders are going to risk anything.
With 8 seconds left on the clock, it's just too little too late from Steve Cleary's under 19s.
Guest commentator Nick Martin coming into the booth here.
He's known as the multi-talented Nick Martin. Seems to be an expert in everything.
Oh, it's an equal puck anyway.
This could be anyone's game with the 8 seconds to go. Not quite anyone's game, but it could be anyone's goal. Australia really driving forward. New Zealand is staking it straight to the wall, and I'm assuming we'll just hold it there. Oh, they're going for a bit of a break.
New Zealand breaking down the wall, but that's going to be full time. And New Zealand Blue edging out over the Australian 18. 4 goals to 2. Great game from both of these teams here. New Zealand will be playing against the winner of the New Zealand Silver team and Australian B team, which is going to be played in just a couple of minutes here. And New Zealand's gathering around for a group chat. They're definitely thinking about the game they're going to have tomorrow. Good
Coach
work.
Rob Tinkler looking relieved.
He is
The boys
very
looking elated.
Alright, we're going to stop the stream here for a couple of minutes. And
Before Nick Martin
we'll be
says too
back
much.
in
We just
just
hit our peak
under
viewership,
7
26
minutes.
people watching.
And we'll be back in just under...
Talk.
We've got 11 now, right?
Yeah, don't worry, I'll phone. You just talk, and this
you take
microphone.
you take the New Zealand team list, I'll take the Australian team list.
Right?
And just try to spot numbers.
Yes, it's
Oh, we're streaming. Hello everyone. We're back here for the third